itong mangyayaring Atin Ito Part 2 dun sa Scarborough Shoal, what do you think is going to happen here? Will China try to stop the convoy midway, or will it give some allowances? Or how is this going to play out?
Well, una-una dapat tignan natin yung situation sa West Philippine Sea. No? Mukhang ang strategy ng China is to degrade yung capacity natin for resupplying and patrolling the area. So yung mga binabangga nilang mga barko natin ng Philippine Navy, ng Philippine Coast Guard, syempre may limitasyon tayo dyan. Hindi natin masustain yan over time kung parati silang binabangga-bangga. So actually, ang question ko rin sa Philippine Navy at mga opisyales, how sustainable is the current strategy ng nagpapabangga tayo? Shouldn't we do something more drastic? Something different? Maybe we should use also warships. Maybe we should also look at using water cannons. Again, these are just scenarios kasi hindi po sustainable yung status quo. So ang kahalagaan ng itong ating to contingent flotilla visit is to add a new layer into the conversation. Kasi yung China, focus lang sila so far dun sa degrading of yung resupply at patrol capacity natin, the Philippine Navy and Philippine Coast Guard. So ngayon na meron kang malaking presence ng civil society at media, obviously, bagong headache na naman sa China yan. And let's be honest, as much as China wants to use violence or something aggressive, medyo cornered din sila kasi lumalabas talaga na bully sila eh. And in fact, the term bully is something they're very sensitive with. And a few weeks ago, yung kanilang foreign ministry had a big statement na, oh, this is a false narrative, we're not bully. Defensive sila, precisely because China wants to present itself as the responsible power. Na ang bully daw mga Western countries. So I think this is obviously quite tricky and risky, but the reality is that hindi pwede umasa lang tayo sa Philippine Navy and Philippine Coast Guard dun sa kanilang new strategy. So this might add new headache for China and give the Philippine Navy and Philippine Coast Guard some room to devise new strategies also dyan sa West Philippine Sea.
Pero Richard, let me just push it before I forget it. Kasi I think may bilgit ka na parang we should reconsider and maybe possibly use water cannons as well. Wouldn't that be opening a bigger can of worms? Because it will give the sense of parang this can become a war of right might mix right. Might mix right. Water cannon mo kami.
Yeah,
babalatan ka namin ng water cannon. Palakasin tayo.
Yeah, whenever you're dealing with a bully superpower, you never escalate mindlessly. Kasi meron silang tinatawag na escalation domination. Kung maglabas ka ng barel, meron silang Armalite. Maglabas ka ng Armalite, may tanke sila, di ba? So you have to be very careful with you have to have a calibrated escalation. Ang akin naman, hindi ko sinasabi na dapat i-water cannon din natin sila. Pero ang sinasabi ko is meron tayong problem. Kasi while ang China ay mukhang bully dito, I think that's pretty clear. And agree naman ako kay Ronald, yung de facto analyst nyo na it's good that we're showing this to the world. Ang problema ko naman is medyo mukhang kawawa rin tayo minsan. As I always say, we should look like the David versus the Goliath, not yung kinakawawa lang, di ba? Hindi pwedeng kalawang lang yung boats natin, hindi tayo pwedeng nagpapabugbog. So we cannot be a punching bag. If you're a punching bag, you're not a David. If you're a David, you're robust, you're strong, you can stand your ground. So that's what I'm saying, we have to think about new things. So siguro itong ating contingent will give some breathing space and perhaps may give some more courage and risk-friendly spirit to the situation. As I said, we cannot mindlessly escalate, but we cannot also be mukhang kawawa lang na pinapunching bag lang tayo. We have to find the Goldilocks escalation. Not too hot to provoke confrontation with China, but not too cold na mukha tayong helpless lang na binubugbog lang tayo dyan sa West Philippine Sea. Okay, we are in totally new territory here. No one has done this in the West Philippine Sea.
Okay,
so this is the first time this is happening. So obviously, there's going to be some risk and uncertainties. Inevitable yan.
Richard, the United States usually replies or responds to these incidents with the usual statement, ironclad commitment. But despite those repeated pronouncements, Richard, China has not shown any sign of backing down. How should we take this?
Yeah, because ang problema dyan with the whole U.S. ironclad strategy, whatever, is that applicable lang ito kung may armed attack. Diba? So far, gumagana yung U.S. element only insofar as avoiding the Chinese shooting at us with missiles and guns. Pero ang problema is, hindi siya gumagana when it comes to gray zone strategy. Now, the problem is, China is not just intimidating us. They're using water cannons, which are, according to Commodore Trinidad, who I interviewed also the other week, parang punching, dalawang Mike Tyson punch power yan, di ba? So So we are somewhere in between normal gray zone and armed attack. So ang tanong ngayon is, anong gagawin ng US? And I think this is where we see the limitation of this alliance. That's why we have to come up with new ideas. Siguro, the other thing we could do, remember, the mutual defense treaty applies when there's any attack on any public Philippine vessel. Ang kutob ko is best what we can do. Again, I could be wrong on this, but my understanding is at some point we have to use the Philippine Coast Guard, the biggest Philippine Coast Guard vessel, yung mga 90 meters, 80 meters, and then ilalagay mo on the horizon yung Philippine Navy warships, and then maybe the Americans have to be there. In short, we have to give the Chinese a taste of their own medicine of kind of a cabbage strategy. All right? We have multi-layered resupply and patrol. Again, that's not risk-free, but that may be just big enough for the Chinese to think twice. Kasi paano mo naman bubulin kung gagamitin natin pinakamalalaki natin mga barko? Then China will be flirting with war, and I think that they're not also going to want to flirt with war. So what I'm saying is the status quo is not sustainable. The next steps are risky, but they're options na hindi naman asking for trouble. So yun ang dapat hanapin natin. But we wouldn't know it until we try, right? We're all in an uncharted territory here. So we also don't know what exactly is China's red line. How far they're willing to go.
Richard, you think you mentioned that China is degrading the capability of our Coast Guard, military, Navy. You think they are degrading? In fact, nagkakaroon nga ng reason ng Coast Guard and Navy to boost their capabilities because of all these attacks.
Yeah, so over the long run, we're boosting our capability, diba? Nag-AFP modernization tayo, we're getting new vessels. The Japanese are going to give us more, 90 meters, 100 meters. Ang problema is in the short run, diba? If you want to do regular patrols, kung purong damage yung boat mo every other week or every week, at medyo mahirap na you continue to. So over the long run, things are looking good. But over the short run, kung they keep on damaging our boats, medyo mahirapan to do this more regularly. So meron kang trade-offs dyan Meron kang mga trade-offs dyan.
Okay, Richard, to Ronald's point a while ago, might you be framing this thing in a Western narrative or perspective when China's actions are being dictated or decided more by its home court, its home audience, not so much with a care for how this might go down in Western public opinion?
For me, there's a third audience, right? So there's one audience, which is the domestic audience. The second audience is the Western international, you're correct. But the third audience is ASEAN audience. Ang basa ko dito is, we have to be careful in a sense that we should also not give China propaganda ammunition to other ASEAN countries. Kasi ang linya ng China is, hindi sila yung bully, tayong provocateur. So I think so far we're winning the domestic PR game. We're winning the Western international PR game. But I don't think we're winning over our ASEAN neighbors. So very good question. Thank you for that question. I think that's why whenever we do something, we have to make it sure how is this read by other ASEAN countries, particularly the Indonesias, Vietnams, and Thailands, and Singapore. Well, yung mga Cambodia, ganun, medyo wala na yan. Hindi natin ma-convince mga yan.
So
pero
answer...
yung medyo nasa gitna, medyo ingat tayo na we don't give them ammunition to say, oh, kayo pala mga Pilipino magulo pala kayo, kayong provocateur.
So Richard,
kayo sa amin.
How are our neighbors in ASEAN reading this?
Well, so far they're not very supportive, right? So I think Malaysia clearly sees us as the provocateur as far as on war is concerned. Indonesia is still feeling its way kasi may transition tayo from Jokowi to Prabowo, but my sense is Prabowo will be more assertive over the long run. Singapore just got a new prime minister, so they're not in a position to. And Vietnam, as you know, is going under major political upheaval right now. So they're also not in the mood to pick a fight on China, right? So actually, the timing with ASEAN is not so good. So hindi tayo pwede umasa masyado in the short run. But nevertheless, my point is we have to fight back against this Chinese propaganda in ASEAN na tayo ang pasimuno or tayo ang tayong tuta ng Amerika na nagpo-push dito. So we are winning the international Western audience, you're right. We're winning the Filipino audience, but the ASEAN audience we also have to win it. So yun yung challenge sa akin. And to be honest, I don't have an exact answer at this point. All I'm saying is wag natin kalimutan yung audience na yan.
Richard, in relation sa sinabi ni Patrick kanina, yung tinanong niya, yung conduct ng US, na alala ko lang doon sa press con ng Atin Ito last week, nandun si Justice Carpio. Tinanong siya ng media kung ano yung kung pwede bang i-invoke ng Pilipinas yung Mutual Defense Treaty kung sakaling i-water cannon at magkaroon ng casualties dito sa civilian mission na ito. Ang sabi ni Justice Carpio, hindi. Dahil hindi ito mga military vessels. These are purely civilian vessels. So, worst case scenario ay wala rito yung usapin ng MDT.
Okay.
Mas ang tanong ay, ano ba yung magiging conduct ng US dito sa ganitong klaseng aggression? Dahil kakatapos lang ng balikatan, no? I'm sure most of their vessels are still here. So, halimbawa, an incident happens. Will the Americans proceed dun sa area na palito? Dahil isang Coast Guard vessel lang yun nandun at this time. At maliit lang siya.
Yeah.
So, anong tingin mo, Richard, yung magiging conduct ng ating allies kung sakaling magkaroon dito ng dramatic escalation ng China vis-a-vis this civilian convoy?
Right. Again, there's a big space between inaction by China and invocation of the Mutual Defense Treaty. So tama, hindi mag-apply Mutual Defense Treaty dito. But if you have Filipinos getting killed, God forbid, injuries, media persons involved, this is going to put a lot of diplomatic pressure on the Biden administration to do something in this part of the world. So my suspicion is at the very least there will be expulsion of some Chinese diplomats. There's already a call for that because of their alleged involvement in disinformation. I think there's going to be some diplomatic downgrading, probably some back and forth economic measures. The U.S. most likely will do some major drills and patrols in the area. So again, ang problema sa natin is we're thinking about 0 and 10. 10 being the Mutual Defense Treaty application and 0 being U.S. not doing anything. My sense is there's a lot that can be done in the middle in terms of diplomatic economic measures. And let's not forget, this is not only about the Philippines, right? This is about America's position in Asia. Ang malaking kritisismo sa Amerika ngayon is masyado siyang involved sa mga ibang gyera. Whether it's Ukraine, na mukhang malabo na yung situation, or whether ito ay nasa Gaza or Israel, di ba? Na parang ang tagal naman ng conflict na yan. So many people are saying Biden is not prioritizing correctly, right? And that he has to focus more in Asia. Because if something happens to Filipinos, the Taiwanese are going to say, what about us if something happens to us, right? The Koreans are going to ask questions. So my point is, if something happens there, even if it doesn't hit the threshold of Mutual Defense Treaty, there will automatically be a lot of pressure on Biden to do something big in this part of the world. So if you're China, you know that even if hindi mag-apply ang Mutual Defense Treaty, there will be some strong response by the United States precisely because of the political conditions that I've been talking about. Let's not forget, malapit ang elections sa US, Biden cannot look weak, particularly when it deals with China, which according to 40% of Americans is their biggest external threat. So you have to also look at the domestic politics in the US and the pressure on Biden to show strength in this part of the world.
Isn't Biden more concerned right now, Richard, with
Elections.
well, of course, with elections are coming, but wouldn't Gaza be his bigger concern or his bigger headache? Because the domestic audience in America is all about, you're seeing scenes na reminiscent of 1968 in campuses, yung mga encampments sa mga estudyante. Isn't that the bigger concern of Biden? And that this concern, this problem with China, even though this is a larger geopolitical contest, can take the backseat for now. Richard, I take the fact that Blinken had to fly to Beijing to meet with President Xi as a sign that the U.S. does not want any trouble with China at the moment.
Well, actually, Blinken raised issues with the Ukraine issue, right? So he was there actually to warn China not to help Russia more, otherwise their companies are going to face sanctions. So actually, they're linking different issues. The Gaza issue is different from Asia in a very important sense. In the Gaza issue, the U.S. ally is the powerful party. So the pressure is on Biden not to give more armaments to the more powerful party, which is now conducting the military operation. In Asia, it's America's allies who are the weak party, right? Or the militarily weak party and the vulnerable party. So the nature of those two disputes is completely different, right? But having said that, if you look at the surveys in the U.S., they don't see North Korea, Iran, or Russia as the number one threat to the United States. And the numbers are huge. More than 40% see China as the number one threat to the United States. So the Rafah issue, the Gaza issue is, should U.S. bankroll the ongoing military operation by essentially giving the bombs? The issue in Asia is different. Should we be with our weaker allies who are being bullied by a powerful China. So you're absolutely right that the Gaza issue is taking a lot of attention, but it's from a very different angle if you look at it.
Okay. Ronald? Okay. Thank you, Richard.
As always, pleasure. Maraming salamat.